Hello, everybody. It's Mrs. Pound, and I'm back with a new chapter, Chapter 6 on advanced genetics. In Chapter 5, we studied Mendelian genetics. So we're going to expand upon our knowledge of genetics. And in Section 6A, we're going to discuss chromosomal and genetic changes. And first, we're going to start with 6.1 on changes affecting the numbers of chromosomes. So our objectives for this video are to explain the difference between euploidy and aneuploidy, discuss the advantage of polyploid organisms, and describe how non-disjunction affects the chromosome number. So two basic types of genetic change are, the first is chromosomal change. This is a genetic change involving the number of chromosomes or the arrangement of genes on a chromosome. And the second is a gene mutation. This is a change of the gene itself, which alters the sequence of nucleotide bases with a gene. We're going to focus on chromosomal change today. So, the first thing I want to talk about is parthenogenesis. This involves offspring being produced from an egg that is unfertilized by a male. And this happens with drone bees. Drone bees are haploid, and this may not be as common in the animal kingdom, but it is pretty common in the plant kingdom that you will have haploid individuals. It happens a lot with, say, mosses, um, and algae and those types of organisms. Now, this is an example of euploidy. This is when you have a chromosome number that is an exact multiple of the haploid number for that organism. So it can be haploid or it can be multiples of that haploid state because a haploid gamete contains a complete set of chromosomes for that organism. So that is euploidy. Now, another example of euploidy is polyploidy, and this is having three or more complete sets of chromosomes. Some examples are 3N, 4N, 5N, or 2N plus 2N. So if there's 3N, that's called triploid. This is when an organism has a complete set of chromosomes beyond the diploid state. It happens when you have a haploid and a diploid gamete joining together. Triploids are usually sterile because the three homologous chromosomes do not line up in pairs during meiosis. So, how you would recreate them, say seedless oranges, because some examples of triploid fruit are triploid fruit that are often larger, seedless, and stronger. So, after you produce this, say a seedless orange or seedless grapes or seedless watermelon, you then have to reproduce them asexually. There's also tetraploid, and this is 4N. An example is the Irish potato. Again, you would have two gametes coming together that were diploid, but then during meiosis, the lining up of the homologous pairs does not happen properly, so they would not be able to reproduce sexually. Potatoes, we reproduce them asexually by farmers cutting off the eyes, and then the eyes develop into new potatoes. Then there's also the case of 2N plus 2N equals 4N, and this can happen with corn and wheat. This is when two different organisms with diploid gametes join. So two different organisms, and like I said, this happens with corn and wheat. There's also a condition called aneuploid. This is when an organism in which the chromosome number is not an exact multiple of the haploid number. So it's not multiples, it's just there's an extra chromosome. So it's the absence of a chromosome or the presence of an extra chromosome in an organism. It's caused by non-disjunction. And non-disjunction is the failure of a pair of homologous chromosomes to separate during meiosis. So instead of separating during meiosis, they stay together and go to the same cell. An example of this is trisomy. This is an abnormal condition in which there are three homologous chromosomes in a set instead of two. Some examples are Klinefelter syndrome, in which a male is produced who has two X chromosomes, so their genotype would be XXY, or trisomy X, in which there's a female who has three X chromosomes. Now, with Klinefelter syndrome, these males generally appear normal, except for many times they are sterile because of the fact that the chromosomes, again, just don't separate properly. And in trisomy X, these females can tend to be either underdeveloped or they can even be called super females where they have some masculine type features. And again, they tend to be sterile. There's also Down syndrome, which is called trisomy 21, which is a genetic disorder caused by trisomy of the 21st chromosome. So, an individual with Down syndrome has three 21st chromosomes. Now, you may know somebody with Down syndrome. There's a beautiful little girl down there in the picture with uh, Down syndrome, trisomy 21, and they tend to be mentally slower. They have some mental disabilities. They do not grow as large, but just really sweet, loving people um, that God has provided with. So it is an incorrect number of chromosomes. There's one extra, and it's the result of a human aneuploid condition. And it usually results from non-disjunction. All of these things result from non-disjunction. There's also monosomy. This is a condition in which there is only one of a homologous pair, chromosome pair. And an example is Turner syndrome, XO, the O representing that there's no second sex chromosome. So this would be a female with one X chromosome and not two. And these individuals tend to be short in stature, not as developed, and they tend to be sterile. They also may have other deformities as well. So our objective today was to explain the difference between euploidy and aneuploidy, discuss the advantage of polyploid organisms, and describe how non-disjunction affects the chromosome number. Now, as far as the non-disjunction goes as well, I should add that other than the 21st chromosome and the sex chromosomes, if there's uh, trisomy with any of the other chromosomes, it tends to be fatal in humans. So we do not really know of many other examples where anybody actually survives that. So don't forget your 5 questions in your notes and keep watching to answer the questions at the end.